Campside Media.
Hey, Campside listeners. Welcome back to Inside the 10, our show where we go behind the microphone of our favorite podcasts and talk to the people who brought them to life. My name is Josh Dean, and I'm one of the founders and executive producers here at Campside Media. Today, I'm talking to the great comedian and actor Barry Rothbart about his new Audible podcast, Searching for Allan Rothbart, a sort of investigative journey into Barry's own family. Basically, Barry grew up thinking his dad was a gangster. This is a podcast that explores just how much of the story Barry heard and believed when he was a kid is actually true. He made it in partnership with producer Joe Barrett, who made White Devil with me, and the resulting show is fun and surprising and emotional, and, well, you just have to join Audible and listen to it, because I promise you'll love the show. If you want more exclusive content or behind-the-scenes anecdotes from our shows, make sure to go to joincampside.com to become a free member of the Campside community. That's joincampside.com. Now, here's my conversation with Barry Rothbart. Let's start with a real softball. First-time podcaster, how did you find the transition from comedy and acting to podcasting?
I'm actually not a first-time podcaster. I did have a podcast for about 2 years with another company that was more of just a chat podcast, but this is my first time doing like investigative, serialized, like storytelling on a podcast. And it's a nightmare. I want to do it again, but it's one of the toughest things I've ever had to do. It's the hardest part, honestly, is that it's just so easy to want to record literally every single moment of everything, especially when it's about you. And my whole life for 2-3 years was literally just recording everything I did. It's too easy,
But then you also end up with what I call the tyranny of tape, which is that you have so much tape, it's just a nightmare to deal with it, right? To actually turn those hundreds of hours of audio into a podcast.
It's such a nightmare, but when you finally do it, it is the most rewarding thing I've ever done. I honestly love the investigating. I love the storytelling. The editing is, there's this viral thing going around now, like on Reddit. It's, how they say woodworking is 80% sanding. Have you ever heard that?
I have not.
So woodwork is 80% sanding. And there's this whole thing on Reddit of like, what's the version of that for what you do? Like, people don't realize that podcasting like this is 80 to 90% editing. And that's what it is. That's what happened.
It's true. This form that you just did for the first time and that we specialize in here is very hard to do, and it's very expensive. And people are always like, why is it so hard and expensive? I'm like, very hard to explain until you do it, but because it takes like much more time than you think it takes, for starters. And every stage of it takes more time than what was the most surprising as a narrative podcast investigator and host? This was a totally new form. I guess what was most surprising to you about the process?
I go into every project thinking it's going to be easy. Like, I think that's the problem with creatives in general, is you go into things being like, this is the one that's going to be simple. Like when I first had this idea, it was something that I had been wanting to do for a long time. My dad, for people who don't know about the podcast, I found out he was in the mob when I was a teenager. He had told me he was Bon Jovi's manager for many years, which was a complete lie. And I found out he was working for the mafia, and then we ended up working together, and he died in 2007. And for many years, I just kind of stopped thinking about it, but I wanted to tell this story. And then I realized I had these tapes that I never listened to, these kind of deathbed tapes that he made. And it ended up turning everything I knew about him upside down. And that was the impetus for this. But I was like, I know about my dad. I know the story. I'm going to just tell it. I'm sure this will take like 2 months or something. Like I honestly, when I started in 2021, I think it was, or 2022, I was like, what is it going to take? Like 3-4 months, maybe, it's not going to, this is like, I know the story. I'll listen to the tapes. I'm sure there'll be like, him being a scumbag, and that'll be it. And I didn't expect my entire life to be turned upside down for 2-3 years, discovering literally the most insane things I could possibly find about myself, my family, who he was, what he lied about. A huge revelation I won't give away on here about who I am down to my core. And it was, it was just really, really insane how long it took and how deep it kept going. And when do you stop? Like that's the thing about that people don't talk about, especially with a personal story, because you could keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I end the podcast by this true thing where I found another person named Allan Rothbart who lived in my building growing up. And I was just like, how is this possible? And I was like, this could be a whole other angle. And I never even went down that road of how that's possible. But yeah, I mean, it's just never ending. So that was really tough. That was harder than I realized, how you could just keep going down the rabbit hole.
And yet you seem very optimistic and excited and ready to do it again. You weren't like, God damn, I'm not doing that again.
Just, you know what it is, Josh? The money is so sweet.
It's true. It's really hard to deny the money. That's why most of us went into it.
No. Yeah, I sincerely love doing it. I know I'm like saying it's hard and it's a lot of effort, but it's a type of medium that I have found works perfectly for what I do and how I like to create, which is to allow things to form as they're happening, and to see where something goes. And especially when this was so deeply personal. It's just really, really, I don't want to say I'm a narcissist, but it is just really nice to be able to talk about myself and my inner thoughts and just be like, I'm going to be super honest about it and hope that that's interesting for people. I don't know, that it was just a very cathartic, really nice process in the end that I would love to do again. We're talking about another show, which, we won't get into details on, but there's a joy from it that I get. And I assume you do too. I mean, this is your life, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I feel like there's some point in the middle of every narrative project that I've like reported in hosting when I absolutely hate it and can't wait for it to be over and think it will never be over. And then by the time I'm done, I'm sort of sad that it's over, and always have really enjoyed the process. And I mean, I guess most of what you've done is, I mean, I guess not the acting, but certainly the comedy is similar to what I used to do, which is just write stories. And I also really enjoyed the collaboration. I mean, did you like that part of it, that it wasn't just you?
Oh my God. Yeah. Joe Barrett is unbelievable. There's no way to do something like this and have it just be me. It's too self-involved, like I would instantly lose my mind. And I did lose my mind. Like therapy has been like, I've been spending a lot of money on therapy since this, but there's,
Is that true?
Yes. Most of this money that I made off of this has gone to therapy. I really can lose my mind easily with a project, and I could go. Did you ever see the Heart of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now? Francis
I did
Ford
in
Coppola,
college. Yep.
where he like loses his mind immediately, focusing too hard on a project. I can really, really get there, and it's some sort of OCD thing. I don't know, where I can just perseverate over the smallest things for so long. And having someone like Joe who's like, this is great, let's move on, this is working, this isn't, to have someone I trust too doing that is so important with something like this. Man, it's like I don't know how you do without it.
You can't. I mean, I am a journalist, so there's probably parts of it that I was more comfortable with than maybe you were in the beginning, but I could never do, like, it's so involved, and takes so long, ends up being so complicated. It's very hard to like see the story, like to keep your eye on the story, I guess, because I don't know how you are. Yours is personal, so that's very different. I haven't really done one about my own life, but I'm always like the raven with the shiny objects, where I'm like, ooh, I want to talk about that. Ooh, I want to talk about that too. Ooh, and can we talk about that? And you need someone to be like, no, that's not interesting.
Because you can't believe when you're interviewing someone that they just said something and you're like, that's crazy that you just said that. That has to make it in, but it's not always relevant to the story. Yeah. I have a question for you too, because, I'm a big fan. You've done a lot of great stuff. I love what you've done too. How, this is something I struggled with making this podcast, is the ethics of especially a personal story, which, I don't think you've done a deeply personal story like this, but
Nope.
the ethics of like when you're thinking about what to include and what to show the public about these people's lives that are could potentially be damaging, could potentially, ruin their reputation, could be deeply personal, even though they agreed to say it on mic. Like, how do you deal with the ethics of that? I've been like struggling with a lot of it throughout, which is because my default is just do it, just throw it out there. But it is a huge responsibility because I interviewed, these women who had sex with my dad. I interviewed like my mom revealing her deepest secrets. It's an ethical dilemma in documenting anything, and journalism, I'm sure.
It's a huge burden. I think it's the hardest thing about telling true stories is that I guess it's like a constant assessment of like, is this important to telling the story? Is it exploitative in some way that can't be defended? Am I being responsible with this person's information and life? And like, is there some greater good here? It's like a combination of all those things. I just did another one of these last week talking about a show that I made, and I said, I'm sure at the end of the day that some of the people who are in that show weren't happy with it and probably don't like me and think I'm maybe even a bad journalist because the way that I told the story maybe doesn't value their portion as much as it does someone else's, right? And that's a decision you make along the way. And I think you kind of live with the fact that I've heard journalists say, like, if everybody's happy, then you've done something wrong because
Yeah.
truth is ugly and reality is ugly. And like, there's no way everybody comes off well. But my feeling is like, on balance, do I feel like I did the right thing, made the right decisions? I can't help it if somebody's upset. But you're right. Like, if they said it to you and you didn't trap them, I mean, I guess that's one of the things. It's like there's ways to trick people and trap them or take their words out of context. And if you do those things, then that's irresponsible. But like, you're sitting across from them with a recorder and a microphone, and they're talking to you willingly. And if they happen to say
But
something,
people forget.
I know they do, but it's not your fault.
I know. Have you ever read I was reading while I was making this, The Journalist and the Murderer? Did you ever read that book?
Janet Malcolm, great book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it's about this journalist who was covering this murder and might have used some unethical tactics to get some things out of them. And I was just like, yeah, I never lied, I never manipulated, I never did it. But there are, you do have to editorialize a story slightly, and you do have to include some things and not include some things, even if it's not misrepresenting the truth. You are telling a story, and it's just really hard, especially with this. Like, there were so many things that people revealed to me that I'm like, they are really, it hasn't come out yet. And, I don't know when this is going to air, but there's a lot of stuff I'm very nervous about that people are going to hear and be like, wow, I hate that I told him that. And now everyone could hear it, but they did,
Yeah, and you sort of have to live with that. I mean, I am curious. I wanted to ask you about, because this is so personal. I mean, I remember along the way hearing about some tough conversations you had with your mom. Did this
yeah,
affect any relationships with your family or friends or your own mother?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's changed everything in my life in so many ways. My mom, yeah, seriously. I mean, it actually has made me closer to my mom because a lot of this was predicated on the fact that I really have not been close with her for many years, and we haven't really talked about any of this stuff. And finally, she didn't know, without giving away too much, that she didn't know that my dad he cheated on her, basically their whole marriage. They got divorced when I was pretty young, but they were married for 10 years. He cheated on her the whole time. He got women pregnant. He did. And I had to basically tell her while recording it that all this shit happened in their marriage. And then,
Whoa.
That I basically did illegal stuff with him, that he did illegal things. She didn't know any of this. And it kind of destroyed her. And over the course of 2 interviews, we finally had to air this out. And what came out eventually was how, she's never really seen me for what I've gone through. And she's, and she finally did. And we had this nice moment where we like genuinely connected, and she cried. And like, it was a cry where I could tell she saw me for the first time. And since then, we've actually had a different kind of lightness to our conversations. And it's been really cathartic for us. And plus a lot of this didn't even make it in, but I spoke to a ton of friends that I hadn't spoken to in 20 years, and we patched things up. There's something that happens. I almost wish that everyone could do a podcast about their family and about their life, because there's something that happens when you put a microphone in between two people and you start recording for a purpose where they're willing to become more vulnerable than if you just had lunch with them and were like, hey, let's talk about our friendship and where we've been, or let's talk about our relationship, because you don't really know the agenda. And there was no way I could have had these conversations without putting a mic in front of someone and being like, let's talk about this honestly. It's such an interesting way to actually analyze your relationships with people.
I never thought about it. You would think it would be the opposite because it would make them clam up, right? But I guess you're right. It signals like we're having a serious conversation here, right? Like,
and let's get vulnerable. Otherwise, there's no point in this. When you're talking, it's really hard to ask vulnerable questions because you seem like a weirdo too, Like if I'm having lunch with someone and I'm like, hey, do you want to talk about that thing that happened to us 20 years ago that we never patched up? It's like very strange to just do that. You'd be like, are you going to kill yourself? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you trying to like tie up loose ends? But this is like, there's a reason to do it. It's really anyone, even if you don't record a podcast, this is for anyone listening. Put a microphone on the table when you're having really important conversations with people every time. It'll go so much better.
Do you and your wife do that now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We tape everything we do. Yeah. No. But it was, that was another thing, is taping my wife, because she's a big part of this, is like, that was really hard, because every time I did it, I was like very cavalier about it, because she was like, yeah, I'll record. So I was just like, we would be having a conversation about something in our lives, and I'd be like, ooh, this is good for the podcast. And I would literally just start recording and forget to tell her sometimes. And she'd be like, have you been recording this? I'd be like, yeah, I actually have. And she's like, she got used to it at some point, but she was such a big part of this that I had to just like, if the conversation goes to something relevant, you got to do it,
But are you nervous for any of these people to hear it? I mean, you said people are going to be surprised what they said to you, but like some of these people are very close to you. Are you nervous for them to hear it?
Yes. Yeah, I'm extremely nervous. And I'm not nervous in the way that they'll be like mad at me. I'm just nervous that I did them justice, that I like at least told the truth. I feel confident that I did. But I want there to be a feeling that like, yeah, he told these things, but he also told a good story, that it wasn't wasted. It wasn't for like to just be, what's the word, gratuitous, like I want people to feel like it was in service of something bigger. But I know a lot of people won't hear the story for what it is. If they're in it, they'll just hear their parts. I get that. Like that's how people listen to things. Like everyone said that my wife Grace was the best part of this podcast, but she hears it every time and she's like, I can't believe you use so much of me. Like I feel so embarrassed that my voice is in this so much. So it's confusing. I think what I want the most, and I don't know if this is selfish, but I just want people to listen and to enjoy it. And like, that's what I'm thinking about the most, and connect to it in some way, because it is hopefully a universal story.
It's a great show. It has some of the things that I think, one of the most important things a narrative show that really makes a good one different from a great one is, and we say this all the time, is like, does the host have some actual stake, emotional investment, connection to the story versus just, and I've done both, by the way, like telling a story that I find interesting. It's always different when you are, and there's no way for anyone to be more connected to a story than you are to this one. I mean, it literally is the story of your family and your father and the search for truth about who he was and your connection to him.
And about me, like, it became about me. It is about my dad, but it became about me in such a deeply personal way, and figuring out who I am. It was hard for me not to be completely emotionally connected to it.
So it changed you for the better too? Is that what you're saying?
Who knows? I don't know. It's never clear. It changed me. I think it changed me for the better. I hope it did. I don't know. It's with these things, it's like, I'm still processing it. It's kind of new, a lot of it. And it definitely, made me a better father to my daughter. And I think that's an important thing that that I'll have. And it's actually made me grieve my dad in a weird way. Like this sounds really callous, but I really hadn't missed him. Even though he died in 2007, I hadn't missed him until about this year. Because like I had never seen him as a full person. And it's hard to grieve someone that you see as a caricature, like in a movie, you know? Like that's how he always seemed to me. And for the first time, I was telling my therapist this. And the last episode is actually a full session with my therapist. So people who listen to this are going to get to know my therapist, which is, he listened to it and he was like, I can't believe you, I agreed to, like, he only heard his voice. And I was like, it was great. But yeah, I really hadn't been able to see him as a full person. I started missing him recently. I think because this is coming out and like, it feels like this is the end of me figuring things out about him. And like, it's been a strange, grieving process recently with this thing too, because, you know, this might be the last time I interact with my dad and whatever that means. Because it's felt like an interaction with him.
But also you will have created this, you know, piece of art media that in a way it also keeps that story alive forever, right? If you ever want to go back and listen to it, or certainly your kids or grandkids or...
I didn't even think of that. My daughter's going to have to listen to this.
Maybe, how old is she?
She's 5.
Maybe not yet.
I played it for her and she was like, this makes no sense. She was really not into it.
I guess the inevitable sequel in 20 years is Searching for Barry Rothbart, hosted by your daughter.
Yeah, could you already give her a development deal with you guys for when I
start recording right now?
For when I die young and have to give her tapes? Yeah.
It's never too early to start recording. Isn't that what Alec Baldwin said in Glengarry Glen Ross?
Is that it? Always be recording. That was what he said.
Yeah, I think so. We remember it as different, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Because podcasting was huge.
It's all part of it. This is part of the sequel. This podcast, you know, I'm inside the tent.
We loved having you. I think my favorite kind of host actually is someone who literally never trained for this, never probably thought that they wanted to do investigative journalism or narrative, and then like took to it so well. I think one reason the show feels different is because you're a little wide-eyed through the process, right? Like I think you can tell that you're new, but also loved it. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not new to documentaries, but yeah, something audio storytelling was crazy. And I hope that people enjoy my voice because I really worked hard on sounding good in this and not.
Did you not sound good in the beginning?
No, I definitely did not know how to do podcast narration. I sounded terrible, actually. We should at some point play some of the early takes of me testing my voice for this. I was overdoing the like, and then everything changed. It was just like I was overdoing the drama of it. It was really off-putting.
No one gets that until they try and do it. I'll never forget the first podcast I made, The Clearing, in I guess 2019, like tracking for the first time with the producer, and I would just read something, and he'd be like, "That was terrible." I'm like, "What do you mean? I just read the words," and he'd be like, "It sounded terrible. Like you don't sound like you're telling someone a story. You sound like you're reading a sentence in a book." And I'm like, aren't I reading a sentence?
Yes.
Well, we have hopefully another one coming. We won't talk about that now, but you have another very exciting project as your second investigative podcast, hopefully in the works. But this one was super fun to work on, and we all are big fans of it. And we're excited to have you amongst the podcasting community now, the narrative podcasting community.
And thank you guys again. Campside's the best. Honestly, I'm not just saying that because this is a show. You guys have been helpful in a way that I could never fully repay. It's been an incredible journey working with you guys.
We loved it too. So hopefully the first of many, man. Thanks so much to Barry Rothbart and our partners at Audible. Please listen to Searching for Allan Rothbart as soon as you can. And thank you for listening to Inside the Tent. If you haven't already, don't forget to go to joincampside.com to become a free member of the Campside community. That's joincampside.com.